I'm Matt Goodman. I'm the online editorial director for D Magazine.
I'm Zac Crain. I'm senior editor at D Magazine.
I'm Tim Rogers. I'm the editor of D Magazine. And this is an inside look behind the issue. For 2 decades, the Best of Big D has always been about where are the places that you should go drink and eat and experience. Obviously, with the pandemic and the isolation we're facing, we knew that couldn't work. We decided to recognize the heroes in our community that are really making a difference. When we asked people online to submit nominations for heroes, we got nearly 1,000 responses. Every single person who is nominated is a winner. But what we did was farm out all those nominations. Everybody had their section that they had to review, and then at the end of that, we figured out who needed to be in the magazine. When it came to the cover, we really had 2 options. We had one wonderful photo that our staff photographer, Elizabeth Lavin, had taken of a nurse at UT Southwestern's Clements Hospital. For us, it was a gripping image of a woman who is trying to make herself relatable to her patients through all of the PPE that she had to wear. The other image that we had to consider was actually taken by a high school student at a protest at Dallas Police Headquarters, and it was Mark Cuban in a mask. For us, ultimately, that recognizable face, the look in his eyes, and of course, the all-important mask that won out.
The original idea for the Mark Cuban story was Mark Cuban for president. It came from Christine Allison, our editor-in-chief. He did not love that because his family doesn't like it. So he was fine being on the cover of the magazine as long as we didn't mention Cuban for president. As for why we decided to cover Mark Cuban now, after the NBA shut down its season, Mark Cuban really stepped up and he used his money and his voice to try to help people and actually really be presidential. So it wasn't a complete out-of-the-blue idea that we wanted him to tongue-in-cheek run for president. And so we were very lucky that Miles had been out there and had managed to capture him, because otherwise we would not be able to have done a cover story on him. The month between writing the story and doing that Zoom call, the protest happened. I knew I couldn't write the story without talking to him again. I was able to get a second Zoom call with him, and he was very gracious and didn't shy away from some tough questions. Mark Cuban actually thinks about all these things beyond when he's being asked about them. He thinks about different ways that he can acknowledge his white privilege. I think it's really important that a lot of this is coming from Mark Cuban because there's a lot of guys who are like him who need to hear about white privilege. He's done a good job of confronting it in his own life, and I think he's done a good job of holding that up to other people.
When we started planning the August issue, we thought it was very important to actually take you inside a hospital that was treating COVID-19.
The voice of the people who are actually treating the coronavirus is not one that we often hear. We often hear numbers and averages, but the people who are actually on the front lines, I wanted to tell their stories. When Elizabeth was able to get in and photograph these individuals, we really needed a narrative to go along with it so that the readers could better understand what's happening in their city. My job was to look at these images and try to bring their realities to life through Zoom and phone calls, which is trickier than it seems. Even though we didn't use this image on the cover, we were able to use it to intro my feature.
What I love about this issue, looking at all of it put together, you see the helpers. In a time of trouble, you always look for the helpers. And in North Texas, they are everywhere.